Today, we're going to be talking about the biggest regrets that home buyers have after they purchase their first, second, or even third home. One of the first things that I see happen over and over again is buyers regret buying too small of a house and not buying more square footage than they need at the time. I've never had a home seller come to me and say, this is just too much house for me. Unless they're downsizing or have a different stage of their life. Most of the time, buyers are wanting more house than what they ended up purchasing. My advice is to always look at what type of home you need. If it fits in your budget and it makes financial sense for you, buy more home than you think you might need. You're always going to have room to grow into it. Another regret that home buyers make is waiting for rates to drop. I don't know if you've been keeping up with the amount of inventory that we have in our market here, but inventory levels are still pretty low overall. A median supply of inventory means that if nothing else came on the market starting today, it would take X number of months to sell everything on the market. That median is 6 months of supply. Every market is a little bit different. Different parts of town have different levels of inventory, but most of the time we are still in a seller's market. So 2, 3, 4 months of supply of inventory versus a buyer's market, meaning anything over 6 months of supply. If the rates drop, what do you think is going to happen? All these buyers that have been waiting on the sidelines for rates to come down are going to rush the market at the same time and cause a high level of competition, which then creates prices to go up. So one of the biggest mistakes that buyers regret is waiting for rates to drop instead of getting ahead of the competition. I find that our really smart buyers right now are saying, you know what, I don't care what the rates are. I want to get into a house and start building equity now. By getting off the sidelines before everybody else, they're actually winning. They're getting into a home, creating equity, and then when it's time to refinance, when rates do come down, they have the ability to do that. Another big regret that most buyers have is 81% of buyers can't envision what a house could be. When you are looking for a home in perfect condition, move-in ready, it's exactly what you pictured. That type of home could be in high demand. If you can start practicing what a house could be, you're going to be ahead of your competition. When you are ready to do those improvements, I would highly recommend, based on personal experience, doing those improvements before you ever move into the home. If you can build it into your timeline to make those improvements like painting the walls or changing out the flooring or carpet, do that now. One of the biggest ones is popcorn ceilings. If you've ever tried removing popcorn ceilings while living there, you won't do it again. Along with that is not knowing your limits of renovations. One too many HGTV shows and you're the next Chip and Joanna Gaines, right? Be realistic about what you can do in terms of a renovation project. Are you really willing to remove that wall or add an additional bathroom? Those are big projects and you might have the budget for it, but are you really willing to take on the work? Those things can really snowball, and if you don't have a contingency budget in mind or a contingency plan for timing, that can really be a regret. Perhaps it's better just to think about new construction or a newer type of home or one that's already in pristine move-in condition. Speaking of new construction, we actually have a buyer and a seller that we helped earlier this year. He lived in a 1950s home, a pretty small home, and because of the age, it had a lot of maintenance items that needed to be addressed, as you can imagine with an older home. So he was actually able to sell his home and then buy a new construction across town because he worked from home. He was open to different parts of town, and he was able to move and sell for the same amount that he was selling his house for. He bought in cash with his next purchase. So being open and realistic with what you're willing to do, this gentleman actually came out ahead in the long run. Being open to other parts of town is really key as well. I have had so many buyers just really focused on one area of town that they love. They are either a subdivision or a certain neighborhood, and you might have a good reason to do that if you have a certain school district that you're trying to stay in or a certain commute time that you want to be within. But narrowing your focus like that can take that amount of inventory that's available on the market and really shrink it. Some buyers will regret not looking at all the options around town. Being flexible, being open to different areas. Your agent is going to be an expert in lots of different areas around town. They hear you saying, I want this type of house in this type of neighborhood. Have you ever considered this? Are you really willing to look in those areas? That can be a big regret for buyers not exploring the different areas that they may not have even known existed at the time. The flip side of that is also true. When buyers have too broad of a focus, sometimes I've worked with investors that say, you know what, just bring me a good deal. I think that's a huge regret for a lot of investors and buyers because most investors have a buy box of what they're looking for. I want a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, single story, single family home, and I only want it to be within a certain distance of a school or a grocery store. By having that buy box of what they would be willing to buy and what they wouldn't, That allows the focus to be narrowed and to actually find a good deal instead of being so broad and so open on just bring me a good deal wherever it is. And lastly, buyers regret not interviewing more than one agent. 71% of buyers didn't interview even more than one agent before hiring the person they decided to work with. That's a huge mistake. You want to understand what the agent can bring to the table. They need to understand your needs and to be able to work together to ultimately make sure you don't have any regrets in the transaction. It's in your best interest to interview multiple agents, make sure it's a good fit for you and a pleasant experience all the way around. We look forward to talking to you more about what your needs are and making sure you don't have any regrets along the way.